Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today. And we're starting with Death Stranding 2 on the beach. For those who are not aware, tomorrow the reviews are going live. And I'm really curious to see how it reviews this time around, because we know that with Death Stranding 1, it did review pretty good overall, but you could tell that it was not everyone's cup of tea, and it seems like it was a bit of a slow burn in terms of people kind of coming around to it. And we did hear with Death Stranding 2 that many of the things that I guess people found fault in within the early game of DS1 have actually been corrected and changed for DS2. So let me know down in the comments below your Metacritic score prediction for DS2. We'll obviously cover that tomorrow, but we actually have some information about the character who is playing Neil in Death Stranding 2. This is coming from Push Square, and it says, you may remember back when this trailer for Death Stranding 2 on the beach dropped, that fans noted the resemblance between performer Luca Marinelli and Metal Gear Solid's main character. Well, his appearance was so convincing that even he thought he was playing Snake in Kojima Productions' imminent sequel. Revealed by Hideo Kojima speaking at Sydney Film Festival, it turns out that Marinelli saw himself in the aforementioned trailer and briefly believed his character was in fact Solid Snake. Kojima asked Marinelli what he thought of his reveal in the trailer, and apparently said, "Oh, Snake is wonderful. I'm so happy to be Snake." Kojima had to quickly clarify, telling him, "No, you're not Snake. You just have a bandana on your head." And I thought this was kind of funny because, yeah, obviously this character resembles Solid Snake, even behaves like Solid Snake, and in a way it kind of feels like Solid Snake in the Death Stranding universe. But of course, Kojima's never going to acknowledge that. And so out of all the new characters when it comes to DS2, this is the character I'm most interested in finding out more about. Moving on to the next topic, though, we're talking a little bit about Ghost of Yotei. This is being reported by Gaming Bolt. It says Sucker Punch's Ghost of Yotei will receive a deep dive next month, but in the meantime, the developer continues to share pictures and details from its research trip to Hokkaido, Japan. The latest PlayStation blog post sees co-creative director Nate Fox discussing a crucial element for the team was to represent Ainu culture in a respectful way. To that end, it met with an Ainu cultural advisor and their family before traveling up a mountain and foraging for vegetables. As a result of that positive experience, fans can expect the same actively to appear in-game, which should feed into the option to camp anywhere in the open world. So we know we're getting a deep dive state of play next month, which I assume this is something that they're going to show us and, give us all the details on what this looks like. But yeah, I thought this was just a little cool piece of information where apparently the developers actually went up and did this exact thing, and they're like, you know what, we should put this in the game. And so there you go. Moving on to the next topic, we have even more leaked information about the PlayStation 6 as well as the next generation Xbox. This comes once again from Kepler L2, who has been extremely reliable when it comes to this type of information. So we are referring to the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, where the title says Kepler L2, the PS6 and next-gen Xbox both use UDNA for GPU architecture. 2027 is the most likely launch date for both, but the next Xbox could release in 2026 to get ahead of the PS6. 20% performance gains over RDNA 4 and raster, and 2 times gain for ray tracing / AI, no 3D cache. And so all of this information was actually derived from him interacting with different individuals on NeoGAF and replying to their questions. The first is somebody saying, "Never doubt Mark Cerny. He still believes in the traditional dedicated console. PS6 will double, triple, quadruple down on AI upscaling and ray tracing. He already hinted at that during the PS5 Pro Tech Talk." Kepler replied by saying both PS6 and Xbox are using the same GPU architecture, so this is true for both of them. And somebody else says, given they use the same architecture and therefore have the same earliest date constraint, how far apart do you believe the respective launches will be? And do you think the overall project timelines compare in terms of start date to release? Kepler replies, both are likely 2027, but I do know, and other people like Heisenberg FX4 have mentioned it too, that Microsoft wants to get ahead of the PlayStation 6, so 2026 could be possible, specifically given they're releasing all their big titles next year, Halo Remake, Forza Horizon 6, and Gears of War E-Day. In the second comment he replied to, somebody saying, is this before or after customizations? He replies, Microsoft and Sony vastly overstate the degree of customizations they make. Most of the time, it's re-adding features that AMD removed in recent architectures to enable backwards compatibility, or removing features they don't use. In terms of actual GPU or CPU performance, it's 99% AMD's work that matter. So once again, we have a reliable insider, Kepler L2, giving us some more information about what to expect. And yeah, it's sounding like the PlayStation 6 and next generation Xbox, surprisingly, based off of what he's saying here, are going to be pretty close to one another. But the big difference here seems to be that Microsoft does want to get ahead of Sony. And this is something that we've heard from numerous insiders over the last year and a half or so. And so there's no telling whether or not that's actually going to happen, no matter how reliable insiders are. Even Microsoft doesn't have that pinned down yet. But the fact that that's what they're striving for tells me that there's a real chance this could happen. And so we have to ask ourselves what the main difference is between the PlayStation 6 and the next-gen Xbox could be if there's like a year gap between their releases. I think if the PlayStation 6 comes later, people are absolutely expecting something better, a more powerful console overall, a more capable console. But it does sound like we can expect some pretty significant leaps with the PlayStation 6 compared to the PS5. And it's going to be really interesting to see what Mark Cerny and his engineering team want to do with the AI side of things, as well as ray tracing. We're going to move on to the next topic, which is Push Square, with a report here. They say here, a slide from a recent PlayStation investors presentation has gone viral, as it effectively confirms that the PS5 has made more profit than all of Sony's previous consoles combined. The manufacturer says the PS5's operating income is at $13 billion so far, while the PS1 era netted $3 billion, the PS2 era made $2 billion, the PS3 era actually lost $4 billion, and the PS4 rebounded with $9 billion. Add the numbers up, and you get $10 billion for the PS1 through to the PS4. There's some context we're eager to add here, however. The company's categorizing generations by chunks of time, so some of the revenue earned throughout the PS5 generation will have been generated by the continued use of the PS4. We know, of course, there are a significant number of players still on the PS4. The chart is also not adjusted for inflation, which is obviously also working in the PS5's favor, especially when it comes to the amount of revenue generated. And to be honest, it's hard to compare the console business today to what it once was. The increase of digital sales means Sony is making more money off of software than it ever has, while services like PS Plus are fueling substantial revenue as well. But the big difference with the PS5 generation has been the monumental growth of live service games and microtransactions. Sony scrapes 30% of revenue off every purchase made through the PS Store, which means it's making unfathomable sums of cash on evergreen titles like Fortnite, Call of Duty, and Genshin Impact. In fact, later in the presentation, it confirms that over 50% of all PS Store revenue is being generated by sales within a handful of titles, like EA Sports FC 25, NBA 2K25, and GTA 5. So, yeah, I just thought that this was worth going over for a moment here because, it does highlight two really important things. Number one, the fact that, the PS5, regardless of how anybody feels about it, is objectively, factually doing incredibly well. But when you look at the details, yes, a major reason it's doing so well is due to the success of live service games and digital sales. And so it does maybe not create the most accurate comparison when you look at previous generations. But for people who are kind of like, always wondering and curious, like why Sony is making the decisions they're making, why they seem to be going in the direction they're going in. This is why. It's because they're looking at what's actually driving growth and driving revenue, and more importantly, driving profit on the PlayStation platform. And regardless of, anybody's opinion on the matter, the numbers don't lie, right? This is the data. You can't really argue with it. But this is why it's going to be so interesting to see if Sony can kind of keep up this momentum going into the PlayStation 6. We'll have to wait and see. Moving on to the final topic of the video, I just want to let everybody know that a Capcom Spotlight was recently announced, and it's going to be taking place on June 26th. And apparently it's going to be 40 minutes long. It's going to have news and updates, and the main titles that are going to be included in the show are Resident Evil 9 and Pragmata. There's also going to be new information for Monster Hunter Wilds and Street Fighter 6. They say we will be presenting the latest news on highly anticipated upcoming Capcom titles, along with developer interviews. Please look forward to information regarding the newest update for Monster Hunter Wilds as well. So it's worth noting, the article says here that Capcom Spotlight shows are generally low-key, so don't expect anything like major. But, you know, they do mention that Resident Evil Requiem is going to be part of this, and so yeah, I got to tell you, I'm definitely going to be tuning into this because of that, and also Pragmata as well. I would like to get more information on that game. So in case you missed it, again, it's happening June 26th, later this week. And yeah, that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.